Welcome everybody. So today we'll be making some fermented pickles, and I've got some fresh pickling cucumbers from my garden that I grew the last couple of days, and we're gonna pop these in here with some pickling spices, some grape leaves, which we'll talk about, and some garlic that's also from my garden. And we'll be making a brine. So when making pickles versus making sauerkraut, you're dealing with whole vegetables, so you don't have enough liquid and moisture to keep the vegetables submerged. So you need to make a brine. And to have a fairly salty pickle that will preserve well, you need about a 5.5%. So for every 1 liter mason jar of liquid that you have, which is our water, every time you add a tablespoon of salt, you'll be adding 1.8% of salinity. So we want to have about 5.5%. That means we're adding 3 tablespoons, and that will give us 5.4% of a salt solution. So we got 3 tablespoons. Now you could do 2 tablespoons and have less salty of pickles, but then they also aren't going to keep as long. So if you want to eat them up really quickly, that's fine. If you want to store them in the refrigerator for several months, you want to make sure that you do them a little saltier. So I've got my brine all ready here with our 3 tablespoons of sea salt. And again, I'm using Himalayan sea salt. That's my preference. Just make sure you're not using some of those sort of, actually they could be called pickling salts, but they don't work quite the same way as just a sea salt or a Himalayan salt will. So make sure you're using the right salt. You might have an inedible ferment at that point. So we've got my brine, which I'm actually going to pour into this so that I can pack my jar. All right. So at the bottom, we're gonna add our seeds and our herbs for seasoning. I've got some dill seed. Now, if you're growing dill in the garden, you can just pop an entire head of the dill flower in there. So when the seed head is ready, you can just throw it in the bottom of the jar. But since I'm dealing with the seeds that are already pulled off, I'm just gonna put a couple sprinkles in. I've also got some whole black peppercorns, and I'm gonna pop those in there. And some whole coriander seeds. So coriander is from the cilantro plant, and when it goes to seed, the seeds are called coriander. And I'm gonna put some of that in there too. Set that aside. And then I'm going to pop in a few cloves of garlic. Now, if your kids don't like garlic, you don't have to use it, or yourself doesn't like garlic. And there are any number of different spices and herbs that you can throw in to flavor your pickles to whatever your tastes are. Pickled garlic like this is actually delicious itself too. It really mellows that flavor and gets almost sweet after it's been fermented. Got the skins off there. Now I'm adding a couple grape leaves, and the reason that I'm doing this is because grape leaves impart tannins or tannic acid into our ferment, and that will keep our cucumbers crispy. So if you don't want mushy pickles, you want to add something that has tannic acid in it, and you can use other plants as well, and I can offer some of those suggestions in your course material, but my favorite by far is to use grape leaves. So after you've put your spices and your grape leaves in the jar, you want to just carefully pack your cucumbers in, and you can put as many in as tightly will fill the jar as you can squeeze in there. And there we go. And if I had any more from my garden this morning, I would even be able to probably squeeze 1 or 2 more. But the important thing is that all of the cucumbers stay below the brine. And I'm just gonna pour my brine over top. And I'll pop a mason jar lid on that, seal it up, and leave it on my counter. And after about 3 or 4 days, I'll start to see a lot of fermentation action happening. I'll make sure I'm burping it once or twice a day if I see pressure building up. And after about a week, it's ready to go into the fridge, and they're also ready to consume. And then once in the fridge, you want to consume these usually within 3 or 4 months, but I've had some last an entire year and be perfectly fine, crispy, crunchy, and delicious. And again, the rule with fermented vegetables is that if they smell good and they taste good, they probably are good. So that is making cucumber pickles. I'm gonna grab some carrots and we'll be slicing up some carrot sticks and making some carrot stick pickles next.